Hi, I'm Dr. Michael Reiner, your host of the Independent Doctors of Pahrump, a TV show that airs Monday night on Channel 46. I want to remind you that I am a practicing physician in Pahrump, and I'm an independent practitioner, which means I am not bought by any insurance company or corporate medicine. We provide the highest level of care. We have nurse practitioners. We have other physicians, specialists who come to our office. Please come visit me. I'm at 1316 East Calvada here in the heart of Pahrump. Thank you. Okay, we're back for that last few minutes of the show, last segment, and so those people who have any questions, now's the time to call and get those in before we're off the air for another week. And I really like being on the show, answering the questions, and I for Marvin, for Brave, for being able to call in. I think nobody knows who you are. Nobody can see you. Your friends may know who you are by your voice, but at the end of the day, no question is too stupid. And people really, if they do say something about your comments, that's well, you know, there's small-minded individuals out there everywhere. But anyway, so let's see. We've got Chuck. Thank you for calling, Chuck.
Hey, Doc. I've been trying. You've been so busy. What a great show.
Well, thanks for calling.
Yeah, I just want to touch on a couple things. One, the cancer. I've had, prostate cancer since 2009, and I really want to urge people to look at all the alternative stuff, especially that revolves around changing your diet and lifestyle. Mm-hmm. And I know you've said it a million times. We kind of, destroy our bodies and turn to a doctor and say, fix it. And, then we complain about all these medications that do us harm, but there's so much that we can do ourselves, and changing the diet is first and foremost. And then look into the alternatives. And I think the time to do it is before they tell you you have cancer.
Absolutely.
Because once you're told, you become so afraid you'll do anything the oncologist says.
Correct.
And the other thing I want to say, and you more than any doctor I've heard, approaches the subject of death. And I just finished reading a book called On Death and Dying. Mm-hmm. And it's by a psychiatrist, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, mm-hmm. who did a study, basically interviewing terminal patients. And her whole goal was to find out how the hospitals and that can do a better job of meeting their needs. And I really, I loved the book. It brought out so many things of what the patients really would want from their doctors, from their families and others.
Yep.
And I think it's so important for us to accept that one of these days we're going to go.
Right. And
you can do it in fear, or you can do it, in a whole different way. And I really recommend this book. So yeah. I'll shut up now and let you.
No,
talk.
No, it's so true. Some of us, whether you look at it how you want to look at it, but death is inevitable, and so if you have a terminal illness that is going to likely take your life in some point in the near future, you have a semi-blessing in that you can plan for that death. And yes, you live in fear, and there's some things that that you are going to have to deal with. But if you step out of your door and get run over by a truck, you're not dealing with anything. It's just there. And some people like that. Like, I want to go in my sleep. I don't want to have to, know that I'm going to die. Well, I've had a patient who basically shared with me a death experience, and he basically felt himself taking his last breath, and he basically was in a very dark place, but it was also very light ahead of him. And I can't remember if he said there was a path or not, but basically he heard a voice, which I think he said was his mother, saying, "No, it's not your time." He mentioned his wife name still needs you. So he was back alive. So, who knows what really happens when you pass from this world to the next world. My experience with hospice medicine and people in dying is that, and Chuck, you probably read in the book, is most of the people don't want to die alone, and they don't want to die in pain. And those are probably the two number one wishes most people have, and they usually have time to get their personal affairs in order. But at the same time, it's a model for living everyday life. Today, my son, who read me this grim statistic, said that every day 7,500, I don't remember what the number is, Americans wake up for the last time they'll wake up. Live each day like it is your last. Enjoy what you're doing. Try and be in the moment. Try not to leave a trail of destruction in personal lives and property behind you. And if it happens to be that today is your day, that your number comes up on the roulette wheel and you've lived your life decently, then you can pass on knowing that maybe, you left this world a little better place. I think that's the mark, really, is if the world is better off without you or better off with you being here. And if the world is a little bit better place with your presence here, then you will be missed. If not, then people may celebrate your death, but not basically the way that you would like them to. I do believe changing your lifestyle is incredibly important. There's no, every day is a New Year's Day. Every day is the next day of your life. So if you were thinking about quitting smoking, or if you were thinking about those things, some people will say, I smoked for 95 years. What's the point? I'm just going to die with it. Okay, listen. As far as I know, they haven't passed any laws that say you can live your life the way you want to. But at the same time, I've always felt like it's a freedom of choice. Do I want to get the most out of my life, health I can, or do I want to be sick and having a rough time the last few 20 or 15 or 10 years? I mean, I find it very hard for most people to die. I've seen a lot of death in my time, and I see a lot of people suffering with their health issues. And modern medicine has done a good job at keeping people alive, but sometimes they're suffering in the current state of their health. And in some cases, it's really hard to die. So that's why some people that basically just stop taking all their medications seem to feel better, because, one doctor does this and one doctor does that. So it's all a balance. Everything is a balance in life, between work, between play, between eating to starvation. And that's the key. You've got to find that balance. Too much of one thing is bad. Too much, not enough of some things is also not good. So, you've got to have time for yourself. You've got to have time for work. You've got to have time to relax. You've got to have time to free your mind. And you've got to be productive too. I believe that, we all have something to offer everybody in this world. And I've looked up there and I've seen people that are not productive and are just taking up space. And for some reason, whatever that power is, it sometimes sweeps them up and removes their protoplasm from the face of the earth and makes room for somebody else. So this is the life. This is natural. It's been going on for years. This planet continues to circle. The sun continues to shine. Despite who's the president, who's doing this, life goes on. And it's really, don't live in fear of tomorrow, live present for today, because that's all you have. and tomorrow may not be here for any of us. So it's very important that we try and clean up our side of the street. We try not to make too many enemies and try and be nice to your fellow person. And I think if we did that, we wouldn't have 1/100th, of the problems that we have today. But we definitely do. So we have Marvin back on the phone. Marvin.
Hey, Doc, about celebrating the death. My mother was Irish, and she believed in celebrating, getting drunk.
Yep.
I said, well, that's a heck of a no, because I don't drink.
Well,
The only thing I drink is root beer.
yeah. That's the closest you get, right?
That's it. I don't like the taste of beer. I never did like the taste of whiskey.
Yeah.
That's terrible stuff. Some people can handle it, though. But
Yep.
anyway, I celebrate with A&W.
There you go.
Anyway, have a nice evening.
Thank you, Marvin, for your call. I appreciate that. Yes, in a lot of religions, death is handled in a lot of different ways. It's your own personal belief. One of the things that I think Chuck was alluded to is that some doctors have a hard time with death because they feel like they should be saving lives rather than doing that. But at the same time, it's important for doctors to understand that compassion is what we're here for, and that ailing people in their suffering of whatever it is what our job is. And sometimes suffering is mental, sometimes it's physical, sometimes, and I mean mental or emotional, sometimes sit back and listen. We just don't have to fix everything. We can't fix everything. And sometimes we just try and lead people in the right direction and let them figure it out. Sooner or later, they either get it or they don't. And if they don't get it, well, maybe I just didn't say the right thing at the right time. Who knows? But moderation is the key. You can't do too much of one thing and expect it not to eventually take its toll on your daily existence. So if you eat too many carbs, cut back. If you drink too much alcohol, please cut back. If you are doing too much exercise, that's even bad for you. So you've got to find that balance in everything that you do. And so please look at your life, look at what you're doing. As long as you're alive, you can change, and as long as you're here, you can say a kind word and you can make someone feel better. And there are unfortunately some very evil people out there, but I know most of the viewing audience and most of the people out there are not that person. And so you can be nice and you can be kind, and don't live in fear, because fear breeds anger, and anger breeds resentment, I think, because then you do things that you don't really want to admit to or regret. So try and process things. There's a real good book out there, Highly Effective People, by Stephen Covey, and he had a lot of 7 habits. And so if you're into those types of books, you might want to look at that. Anyway, that's all for tonight. Thank you for your calls. I really appreciate it. Y'all have a wonderful evening. We'll see you next week.